Hi, my name is Asha Stenzel. I'm a sophomore here at the U of M, and this is my BBE 2201 Do Something and Report It project. We have learned that there are different types of biofuels that can be burned. Some of these biofuels can be wood, corn, or methane as fuels for heating, cooking, power generation, or other uses. However, I will be specifically focusing on corn burning furnaces and the benefits they have as a heating fuel because I've experienced it firsthand in my own home. First, I bet you're wondering why I chose this topic. This topic is particularly important to me because it influences my daily home life. Back in about 2007, my parents decided to purchase a corn burning furnace from a local business in Owatonna, Minnesota. They did this because our heating bill was extremely high and yet the house was not being properly heated. I was living in the basement at the time and I would often complain about how cold it was and how I couldn't sleep. So, after some investigating, they went and bought one and I've been warm ever since. However, although my toes are warm at night, the process behind installing a corn burning furnace takes some time. I know you're probably wondering why I'm considering this topic when it's already been in my home for quite some time. Well, at the time that it was installed, I did not take the time to explore how it worked and the benefits it had for my family. All I knew was that it was going to make me warmer at night. So with this project, I worked with my father, who explained how he takes care of the corn burner and why it has impacted my family. In the process, I was able to explain to him about why it's more beneficial for our environment. So, first off, we'll start with some important facts. Depending on the source, field corn typically costs between $3 to $6 a bushel. Unlike other sources of energy, where the cost can fluctuate during different months of the year, the cost of corn remains relatively stable all year round. Another question I had is whether or not you can control the heat on your corn burning furnace. The answer is yes. There are thermostat controls on the stove that control both the room fan and the corn flow in the fire pot. Another question I had is how the heat is circulated. A variable speed fan in the stove circulates the air around the room. In reality, a corn stove is like a convection heater. Also, I asked what type of corn could be used. The answer is all grades of corn will burn in the stove. However, the higher the grade of corn, the cleaner it will burn and the more heat will produce. Also, they recommend using screened corn, which leads me to my next slide. The start of this process begins with the screening of corn, as seen in this picture. My dad taught me to use a normal 5-gallon bucket and a screen big enough to sort the corn. This is done to get rid of any excess stalks or leaves. When this is burnt in the house, it allows the house to be cleaner. Another fact that I learned is that the lower the moisture content of the corn, the better it will burn. So after screening the corn, we move to the actual corn burning stove. As you've seen in the other picture, one half of the top of the stove opens up. This is known as the hopper area. Basically, it's a storage area where the corn is held until it is burned. In this picture, you see the exhaust pipe connected to the corn burning furnace in the wall. This allows the exhaust that is generated when the stove is in use to be blown outside rather than inside the house. My father installed this when we bought the furnace. According to him, it was not too hard to put together, it just took time. This is an outside view of the exhaust pipe. You always know when the corn burning furnace is in use because a lot of ash is produced and secreted. This may be bothersome to another person, but it usually just washes away. Surprisingly, it's beneficial to the plants in the garden under it. Seen in this picture is another important part of the stove. This pipe allows oxygen from outside to be fueled into the stove. This means that the stove is not taking any important oxygen from the house. So this is another picture of where the corn is stored. There's an auger that pulls the corn to where it needs to be burned. I asked my dad and he said that he usually puts 75 pounds into the stove. This is about 1.5 bushels. I also asked him how long this would last and he said it really depends on the weather outside. As I stated before, there's an auger that pulls the corn through into a burn chamber. This is what you can see in the picture. You can see a flame and the slow disbursement of corn into the chamber when you watch. There's a dial on the side of the stove that has settings for how fast the stove burns the corn. The faster this corn is burnt, the more heat will be produced. This may seem obvious, but when the chamber is closed, the glass and the metal on the outside door can get extremely hot. I've actually been burnt by this. Other styles may not have glass as you have seen in this picture. There are different styles, and we chose it because it looked more like a fireplace. Every 30 seconds, the corn is stirred in the burn chamber. This This burn chamber has holes in the bottom, so this allows the ashes to fall through and to be dispersed into the small ash chamber as you see on the bottom of the picture. This little chamber must be emptied every so often so it doesn't overflow. The downsides of having a stove is that there's a lot of ash produced, but it's easy to clean. So the biggest question is whether or not this is a cost-effective product. And my parents would say, and I would definitely say now, that it is definitely worth it. In 2007, the bushel of corn cost a little bit less than it does now due to our economic times. However, my parents were actually saving a lot of money by having the corn burning furnace. Other pitfalls that there are about the corn burning furnace is that it may not be the most beautiful product and technology out there. It doesn't look like a fireplace, but that is why we tried to buy our furnace the way it looks now. Also, it takes a little bit of work to maintain, but despite the beauty and the work it takes to maintain, the cost that it was and the amount we're saving completely overcomes that. So the importance of this project is fairly great. By working with my father, I explored a technology present in my own home. Before taking this class, I did not even realize that I had a biofuel technology in my home. I also appreciate the effort that my family is taking to use other forms of energy. It's funny how things can go unseen, and this was something that went unseen for several years. Now I will be able to generate and operate the furnace when my parents need help, and I like that I'm more knowledgeable about this technology, especially because of BBE 2201. So thanks for listening, and